The sky had gone from blue to yellow. And I said, that's weird. And I got up and I opened the door and I looked to the north of me where the hospital is, and there was an enormous wall of smoke and flames blowing across the canyon. And I knew at that point it was a big one. It wasn't going to be a little incident, it was going to be big.
I saw it looked like it was blowing southwest, so it was going to go towards Paradise definitely, but it wasn't coming here.
I got out of the shower and then heard on the news that it was going towards Paradise and Concow. And I think at that exact moment was when it was rolling into Concow.
When the sheriff stuck his head in and said, you guys got to pack up and go, get your stuff and go. My girlfriend, who had been through this before, this is like the third time she's gotten burned out, she helped me pack up. And she said, don't leave me. I said, nope, you're coming with me. I had gotten a text from one of my customers, said, if you have to go, come here. I had gotten that like at 8:30, and I said, thanks. You know, that really means a lot to me, knowing I wasn't ever going to have to leave. And then I had to leave.
Having dear loved ones in Paradise, I started in on the phone just to make sure they were watching the news and got it. You know, I wasn't sure really what the town was doing for alarms and all that.
I've heard that there were people who, there was so much fire that they opened the car door so they could see the center line in the road, so that they knew they were on the road, because they couldn't see out the window at all because it was just flames and smoke.
For a long time, I've been studying rural-urban kind of interactions and places outside of cities that interact with cities. And so I thought, well, now that I'm in this region, maybe I'll start studying it here. Turned out we kind of saw that the community was very organized around these sort of natural processes, water, and that, you know, usually too much water in the case of some of the processes that we talked about, and of course fire as a kind of enduring symbol of life in the foothills. So there is marijuana production, and so that seems to get a lot of people's attention. Not that it was on my radar at the time at all, but over time, even as I got involved there, that story started to stand out more and more to me because of other people's reactions. When you say, oh, I'm doing research in Concow, oh, is it safe? You know, can you take your students there? And, you know, those kinds of things. For sure, the people in this area, especially in Chico, you know, people who haven't had experience in Concow will often make that reference to the drug culture. It's not every single person that you come into contact with is involved.
Many of the people who chose to live there were people who were, I guess you'd say, into an alternative lifestyle. Many people that were very creative and just wanted to live in nature.
Coming up here in the 70s, we all made a community and house raisings, and we had our kids together at home. Like I had my kids here at home in the Dome, and I had a whole bunch of friends here and midwives, and we were just, you knew everybody, and you were all friends, and you helped each other, and you got together, and you had potlucks, big potlucks, and play horseshoes, and gather together and play music in the evenings, and build community. All of the brush and the foothills and things have not been allowed to be burnt out, you know, in a prescribed way to take out the brush, and they've turned it into tree farms all around us, which is not a healthy forest. So you have all this brush buildup and unnatural stands of trees, and all of that has contributed to being an extreme fire danger area.
One of the things I did when I was in Concow was I was a volunteer firefighter for almost 30 years. I've been on several fires. There was the Poe fire that happened right around the time of 9/11. And there was the 70 fire that was that same year. And there have been several. It seems like at least every 5 years.
Fire is part of their existence. I mean the community's existence, and it's always on people's minds.
Peggy actually saw the smoke first, taking our grandson to Paradise High School. And she came back in and said, "We have a fire." And of course everybody ran out. And we could see by the looks of this fire that it was going somewhere.
And we have a pretty decent array of yard sprinklers, big Rainbird ones. But we have to turn on the generator when the sun is not shining on the panels. So it's early in the morning, it's not sunshine hours on the panels yet. So I ran around the back of the building, grab the generator, pour some gas in it, throw it in the car, take it up the hill to the where the pump is, and I turn it on, and I get water spraying all over.
I called my best friend of 46 years that lives up on Billy, and I've lived at her house before, and told her to get out, and she wasn't taking it serious. It was upsetting. And I'm like, "No, you got to get out now, load the dogs up in the truck." And she was talking about some vehicle she didn't have and this and that. And just, get up and load the dogs up. And I headed to Chico to meet everybody and still texting her, "No, you got to get out." Well, about 9:30, the text stopped from her.
Everybody immediately got busy getting garden hoses and stuff preparing for the fire. I ran to the tractor, got the tractor out of the barn because I had a field that I had no livestock in, fairly close to the house here, and I wanted to get the grass down in that field so that the heat wouldn't be in it, and make a small fire guard there.
I called my husband and I said, "Okay, I'm leaving." And I got in my car and I drove away, and I got about a mile down the road, and I had to go underneath a phone line that had fallen. There was fire up. I was going towards the fire at that point. My road to get out, the escape route, goes towards the area where the fire was blowing across. So I went to my neighbor's house, which is right across the road from mine, because the trees are very pruned high, and the yard is very clear, and he also has a solar-powered water system there. So I found a hose, and he had a ladder, and I put it on the roof, and I hosed the roof down, and I got down off the ground, and I hosed the gravel, and I hosed the zone around the house, and the zone around the pump house where the water was coming out, and the propane tank, just so that it wouldn't go up too.
There was no coming back together for several hours. We saw glimpses of each other because I was so busy on that tractor. Once I got that done, my stepson Brandon happened to come at the same time. While I was doing the water generator, he jumped on the tractor and finished that fire break that I was starting because he could run it. And once I got the water going, I got back on the tractor. That field was done, but by that time the fire was here. We were actually pushing flames with the tractor and started backblading pine needles as fast as I could, and actually saved our rental by doing that. And that made it so that the fire went around us.
And sure enough, the house had made it, and the yard where I had wetted was all unburned, and the propane tank was not exploded, and the pump house was fine.
It was a jet plane. It was the noise of the afterburners of a jet plane. So loud you couldn't hear yourself think. The heat was horribly intense. It's one that I do not ever want to go through again.
My best friend, still hadn't heard from her, and she's missing at this point. She's one of the missing people, her and her husband. I don't know what we were thinking, that people could actually live through that, but and be missing, wandering out in the woods. I don't know what we thought. But it was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon the next day when they found out there was a neighbor, my friend's next door neighbor saw her husband, I guess they didn't evacuate either, and saw her husband on the roof trying to fight the flames. So they called the firemen on him or whatever, and the firemen came. At this point, it's a windstorm still, and it's burning the house down. So they rescued him off of the roof, and he had massive burns on his hands and pretty good burns on his face. But the house was engulfed. They couldn't, go in the house. And 5 dogs, 3 of them was hers and 2 was the other people living at her house. And went down to the basement and died. And we found out the next afternoon. They life flighted him to UC Davis, and to this day, 5-6 months later, I really don't know what happened.
The community was burned out. This was so big. Everyone was just in shock.
My best friend's husband, he went to UC Davis and stayed there about a week or 2. I spent a week being really angry at him because they were married about 28 years or something like that, and he come out of alive and she didn't,
I'll say one thing that I've been trying to do that actually brings up the grief worse is with insurance companies and with the IRS, a lot of times you're asked to make a list of all the things that you lost. And every time I try to make that list, I'm reminded of things that were dear to me that can't be replaced.
We had her celebration of life a couple weeks ago, finally. It's just really hard now. And I thought it would get easier after her memorial. I've been painting a lot of these, I call them Butte strong rocks. After the fire, I painted mine, and I painted these little sunsets with the peace sign, and I started painting some angels for her and to put at the crosses in Paradise, because that's really the only place I have to go, And I went to the crosses and put a picture on it and put those rocks out.
One of the things that I have found that helps me is to make music. And as a musician, although I've lost most of my printed music and I did lose my instruments, but I have since gotten a new guitar. And so sometimes just singing helps me, and I find that it might bring joy to others too. And sometimes that is the most helpful thing you can do is reach out to other people and know that you're not alone.
I think they might feel a little bit left out of the conversation that is growing nationally about this fire, because it's all, so many people just say it's paradise. And I feel like they probably would like to be mentioned a little bit more as one of the communities that's been affected by the campfire.
So I heard about a church in Oroville, at the Nazarene Church, and I went there and signed in, and there was cots inside that you could have slept in, but I don't like crowds, so I opted to sleep in my truck. That's basically where I lived. They kept us alive. It's where I lived for probably 6 weeks. They fed us 3 meals a day, and they provided housing for people. The hardware store had a warehouse next to their hardware store that they were building. They allowed me to turn it into a distribution hub. If we can get it in the warehouse, we'll distribute it. Thousands, thousands of people. But we're not the only place that donates. Without the donations that come into our Hope Center, we don't got nothing. The LDS people, all of them buckets are cleanup buckets. Thousands of cleanup buckets, as well as food boxes. They've packaged them up here, donated all the food, just out of the graciousness of their heart. The man that is remodeling a hotel in Tahoe, instead of selling the furniture that he's taken out of it, he is eaten the value, he's just ate it, and rents a truck, pays for the fuel, and donates all of this furniture to us. And it's been so well received, you can't believe it. Not a person's ever said, oh, that's got a scratch on it. They say, can we have 2 of them? Sure you can.
Our church was burnt down. Our pastor lost his home. He took a sabbatical for a year. And rather than drive into a town every Sunday, taking a half hour each direction and sitting among people we don't know, we thought our own community needed support. And so I play music, he does the message, and we have a little hour gathering just to support people who need it. And we've had various people show up just probably because they're going stir crazy and need to be around other people more than anything. But that's what it's about. It's about community. You know, people don't usually mind us praying for them, as long as they don't have to do the praying.
Assistance that's come from grassroots people has been much more productive and meaningful than some of the agencies that are like some of the people that have just gone, I know there's a need, I'm going to do what I can to fill it.
Lucky for us, we have a compassionate community that was set up food service everywhere. Churches opened their doors and donations poured in from everybody's connections all over around the world. And that was amazing. When we finally got the FEMA people here, when they arrived, I talked to numerous FEMA worker people that had been to other disasters, and they said never have they been to a place like this where it was such a big disaster, and they arrived and everything was already in place.
If you don't laugh, you're going to cry. So, you know, you got to keep fighting. You can't quit, you know. I'd rather smile and laugh. See, you just brought me down. It's cool. But, you know, it's the rest of the community, you know. I mean, when you interact with other people, it brings you up, and it doesn't take away from them, and that's how you maintain. That's how I maintain.
The advice for the community: keep putting one foot in front of the other one. You know, it looks bad, but we will make it. You know, I'm here to help whoever I can with that. As much as I can do to help people, I will. But we have to be steadfast in our motion. Keep moving forward. You know, don't look back. You know, it's going to be a memory forever, but look at the encouragement. Now we have a massive fire break here. We can keep this massive fire break. We'll be safe the next time.
And the people are so strong and resilient. It's impressive. It's reassuring.
I keep thinking this isn't the worst thing that could happen. We didn't lose our lives. We didn't lose each other. We just lost a bunch of stuff. And it could have been so much worse. So I'm thankful for what we have. A roof over our head, a place to come, and people who love us.
Oh, many is the day I have squandered away, letting go from the weight have spent on worried mind while living in this world of wonder. I have troubled my soul doing things I can't control, waiting my next foolish blunder. And I try to tell myself it's in the hands of someone